Let's crack open a beer and share some thoughts.
Welcome to Opinions, and goodness me, mate, are we starting with a beast of a beer this week?
Yeah, not really sure how this has come about, Steve, and somehow we both agreed to do this. As listeners will remember, we got sent through some Brew York beers recently, and I think we promised we'd do another couple from the range. So our second beer of the evening will be different to each other. However, the first one, we both said we'd do the same beer, go big and stay at home. A Kvik Triple IPA, 10.5%.
It's a very sensible start for us, isn't it, this week? Should we dive into the beer and see what it tastes like? Cheers.
Cheers. I don't know about you, but the aroma's bloody spectacular, isn't it?
Wow. That is a big beer in every sense of the word. The aroma is beautiful. As you said, it's the first thing you pick up, isn't it? And it's this delightful mix of tropical fruits that's going on in there. But that body, that flavour, that finish.
Carbonation on it is superb as well.
Yeah.
It looks fantastic in the glass. I mean, it's got for want of a better phrase, it's got almost it's got a fruity haze to it, similar to a lot of the Kernel beers, rather than being thick and juicy.
Yeah,
probably be a better way of describing it. It's got a pithy bitterness to it as well, and yes, it's definitely a big beer, but the lightness of it, I think, would make it a very deceptively drinkable beer, and very dangerous if you didn't know the 10.5% from the outset.
Oh yeah. I mean, it does hide its ABV very well, although there is I'd say a slightly boozy warmth at the end of it that comes through just after that bitterness. But yeah, I mean, flavour wise, it's proper. It's juicy, and it's tropical fruits, and as you said, it's got that pithiness to it. But then it doesn't finish soft and sweet. It finishes bitter. That's a proper tasty number. That really is. I'm going to have to be careful here because at 10.5%, I'm in danger of just smashing that.
I think your co-host may also be in the same danger as well. So just having a look at the can. So as usual, they have on the side of the can their little spider's web, and it's definitely pointing towards the hops, the shaded areas. And the hops they have used in this are Nelson Sauvin, T90, Citra, T90, Mosaic, T90 and Cryo. So they've gone big and bold on those hops. So a bit of New World, along with, the Citra Mosaic, which we've referenced many times before. But I also do wonder if this magical yeast strain has added something to the flavour as well, Steve.
Yeah, because it's a Kvik triple IPA, so they've used that Kvik yeast with it, and as Lee always does, he sent us through some tasting notes as well. So I just want to read from what Lee sent across to us. So the recipe for this little number came from their production manager Roddy. The yeast is particularly interesting. In fact, in terms of it's one that likes to be abused. You can pitch it using less than the usual required amount of yeast and ferment it with really high temperatures, 35 to 40 when normally 20. And rather than the off flavours you'd normally get doing this, you get lovely fruity esters which complement the hop character. I think we can both completely agree with that part of it.
Definitely.
The name and branding was also conceived by Roddy. It represents the stay-at-home period when everyone has been drinking more and binging on streaming services. We've also found through this period that people have been craving the stronger beers, probably for the same reasons Martin described as less reasons to not drink. Whilst we only ordinarily do one double or triple IPA a year, we've released 3 during the lockdown period.
But that first bit of the description he gave us there with some of the technical gumph in it as well. I mean, like I said, this I think the yeast, I've now heard about this for about a year. I think River and Brews was probably one of the first podcasts I heard it mentioned on. And it does seem to be able to do some quite magical stuff. I mean, those temperature readings Lee gave, plus there is definitely a bit of a marriage with those fruity esters coming from the yeast and the hop characters as well. And the only thing stopping me really necking this is that little bit of the alcohol burn that you mentioned, Steve. A little bit of a warm.
It's and that's not immediate, is it? That
No.
comes. You get the bitterness, and then you get that warmth, and it's at that point where you're almost like, hang on, I need to slow down here, otherwise I'm going to be in trouble. Interesting combination of hops though, as well. What you described there. So like you say, a bit of a marriage of the New World stuff, particularly in the use of the Nelson Sauvin, which I've found always tends to give a more kind of grapey, winey finish to beers.
Yeah.
Makes them very, very crisp, but then balancing that out with, you know, the two of the big American hitters in Citra and Mosaic as well.
But it's also got to be the balance. You know, if we go back to our Budvar episodes, the harmony, you know, it's all very well chucking these big bold hops in there and these, you know, with what can be obviously a big bold yeast, but they've obviously got the balance right. They've got the science behind it right, or they didn't nail it first time, but the second time they did. Whatever it is, this is tasting fantastic. And if you were in their tap room and you were going through a range of their beers and you had a Big Eagle and then you went on to this, you would be having a cracking time, but you would pay for it.
This seems to be the logical step up from Big Eagle for me.
Yeah, definitely. This is where I'd go. I'd go Big Eagle in this.
Yeah, because it continues that kind of bitterness that I know we both look for in a beer.
Yeah, and the flavour hangs around as well. I'm getting this like after coating of orange and those tropical fruit notes you were talking about. This is an absolutely superb beer, and, you know. And we were waxing lyrical about Big Eagle previously.
Yeah, and this again, absolutely delicious. And we are really, really grateful once again to Lee at Brew York for being so generous and sending us lots of their beer to try. You know, we've been very lucky. We'll carry on drinking this. Hopefully we won't get too slurry as we get to the end of the first part of the show, but I can't promise anything. What have you been up to in this last week, mate?
I joined a virtual online tasting / launch last Thursday, and that was with Ardbeg, so the whiskey distillers, who had got together with Brew Gooder to produce a beer for, you know, these whole clean water projects. Originally there was going to be a big worldwide launch and, you know, I think maybe a festival as well back in March, pretty much arranged for the weekend of lockdown, I think. So obviously that fell by the wayside. They held back on releasing this beer, which is a 6% smoky porter. What I would say, I think you would be okay with it, Steve, because I think the smokiness is very muted. It doesn't have, you can tell it's got the whiskey peaty notes that Ardbeg are really well known for, but not so much that you think you are actually just tasting a beery version of whiskey. So it's very subtle, very muted. It was actually a really, really nice porter. So, you know, thank you to Ardbeg for the invite. I mean, I do quite like my whiskies anyway. So it was nice to have that, and came with a very nice whiskey glass. So that's got added to the ever-growing collection of glasses that I still haven't got room for. So yeah, that was actually really good fun.
Did you do the whiskey alongside the beer?
Yes.
As well as like a comparison.
So they sent, you know, basically an old-fashioned miniature, the sort of one you'd find in a mini fridge in days when we used to stay in hotels. And so we had that first, and then the smoky porter. I would have done it the other way around, only because the whiskey Ardbeg is a very distinctive peaty whiskey. So I would caveat that saying I didn't get as much smoke could also be because I did have it straight after the whiskey, and I enjoy the whiskey. But then we went back to the whiskey as well. So it was like, taste the whiskey, see what you think, goes for the beer, then back to the whiskey. So yeah, it was really good fun, really well hosted. got some nice bits of information about just a whiskey in principle, and some of the history behind Ardbeg. So yeah, if you do see the Brew Gooder Smoky Porter, what I would say is online seems to be the best option, either through Ardbeg or Brew Gooder. And probably just to mention that Ardbeg brewed it with Williams Brothers, who have been going quite a while now and are pretty much stalwarts of what I would like to say the Scottish craft beer scene, quite early doors. Definitely ones I saw quite early on in, I want to say Sainsbury's in the 500 milliliter bottles. So yeah, like I said, really good fun, really enjoyable, and thanks again to Ardbeg for inviting and hosting.
Great stuff. Sounds like a great event. And it seems to be that these kind of virtual beer launches are becoming more and more popular now, aren't they?
And I think some of these launches, and I'm sure it happens in other industries as well now, I think some of them will stay, because I think they've found, like you and I, Steve, that you widen the geography of the people you can speak to. Now, that Ardbeg tasting, they could have done it in that bit of Scotland they're in, which is Islay, which is quite tough to get to. Or maybe they would have chosen maybe to do it in a major Scottish city, and then maybe do another one in London, maybe one in Leeds. So then you have to do multiple events. So I think with some of these things, I think some of these habits will stay.
I think so.
People will have found the tech works.
Yeah, I think it will. I think, like you say, you can host one launch event on Zoom for very minimal cost, as opposed to running 3 or 4 evenings at venues where you've got venue hire, you've got to get all your people there, you've got to get your invites out, you've got to get all of your products there as well. And I just think I do think it's one of the things that is going to stick, and we're going to start seeing a lot more of as well.
Yeah, I think so. And then I decided on Friday, well, I'd spoken about it with my brother a few days beforehand, who I hadn't seen since pre-lockdown, that we would have a bit of a catch-up on the Friday in London. He comes in from Milton Keynes, I come in from Hockley. I just wanted to, there was a little bit of curiosity about me, about wanting to see my bit of the city during this period. And I have to admit, it was so odd. I got into London about midday on the Friday, hot day, as you'll remember, went past a couple of the places which would definitely be overspilling with people wanting to enjoy the sunshine, all closed. I've got some pictures along Moorgate, so that's on the way to Bank, where you can't see a single person in the picture. As I made my way down to the Pelt Trader at Cannon Street, got to the Pelt Trader about 12:10, and I was literally the first customer in there, and then I was the only customer for the whole of my first pint in the Pelt Trader on a Friday at Cannon Street. It was like really, really weird. Naturally, I had a Colonel. If I'm going to go into London, I'm going to have a Colonel, obviously, and then I followed it up with a Colonel. So stuck on a theme in the Pelt Trader.
Just picking up on one of the points you made there about the lack of people around, and you being in the Pelt Trader and being the only person in there. I've been in there on a Friday lunchtime before, and normally, especially on a sunny day, people are spilling out. You can barely move in there, and I wonder if this is, and it's something that I've seen a lot of people comment about online. This is going to be probably one of the next challenges for pubs and bars, isn't it? Particularly city centre ones, as businesses have begun to realise that actually they don't need a venue for their staff, and they do trust their staff to work from home. And we're seeing more and more businesses switching to that sort of model now. Obviously, with the lack of people coming into a city centre to work, means there are a lack of people then spending their disposable income, their lunch times, their after work times, actually drinking and eating out as well.
Oh, definitely. The 3 bars, pubs near me, of which we've been to a couple, Steve, or we've recorded at my workplace, all of them are closed. And Friday lunchtime in the city is a fairly busy time anyway, let alone when it's the nice weather. Even during holiday season, there'd be enough people in there for a lot of those individuals to be outside. And the Pelt Trader, as an example, especially, is an indoor venue. I mean, the bit outside is basically pavement. It's not a designated area per se. It's more there for a bit of overflow, people who smoke, that kind of thing. It is an indoor venue, and it does have very little in the way of natural ventilation and light. And I mean, for that reason, I chose to sit at the seats closest to the open doors. So yeah, I think there'll be many challenges for a lot of these places. The two of the places I mentioned near work, both of them are Fuller's places, and they were both closed. Again, purely because of numbers. So like you say, Steve, I think there is going to be extra challenges, especially in cities like London, where not enough people can actually afford to live in London. So you haven't got that residential population in the city centre, and people aren't coming into work.
I wonder if we'll see the flip side to that in terms of commuter towns. Will they see an increase in people drinking locally as a result?
I think potentially, yes. I think people may well be inclined to do a bit more local, but it really depends what you're looking for when you do go out for that drink or bite to eat. You will get probably better value, but will you get the choice you're after? Steve, what about you? Have you been up to much?
I've actually just been spending quite a bit of time at, listeners will remember me mentioning that essentially my nearest bar is now the bar of a local golf club. That's just around the corner from where I live, and I've actually spent quite a bit of time over there recently. They've got a fantastic little selection of beer now. They have ABK Hells on tap, which I think I've mentioned before.
Perfect in this weather.
Yeah, they have Guinness on tap as well, and previously pre-lockdown their bitter offer. Now they don't have cask pumps, so it is keg bitter. Was Southwold Bitter, which is a beer that you have to really have that on cask to have it at its best. So I kind of avoided it, but I went in there post-lockdown to see that the Southwold Bitter had been replaced by Ghost Ship. And I was like, brilliant. So it really actually ticks all of the boxes for me now. You've got a decent lager, you've got a decent sessionable pale ale, and then you've got Guinness as well. What more could you want from a tiny little golf club on my doorstep, independent business? I can walk there and back. I feel like I'm supporting my own community, and they've got decent beers.
I think it's a bit of a win, to be honest. And I would say for a local golf club bar in the bit of Essex you're in, Steve, that's a bit of a find and a bit of a win. So presumably, Steve, it's a bar which is open to non-members then?
Absolutely, yes. It's the golf club is set behind essentially the new build estate that I live on now. I think the golf club actually sold some of their land to enable the estate to be built, and they've been very, very clever. I believe that the manager actually lives on the new estate, and there's a Facebook residents group, and they've been very, very good at advertising what they do on there, and advertising themselves as essentially the local watering hole. Because if you want to go out, you've got to walk into Witham Town itself, which is easy 20, 30 minutes from here. Whereas from the estate, the golf club is literally 10 minutes.
Speaking of beers though, Steve, any highlights over the last couple of weeks?
There have been two, both from the same brewery. I think unless you've been sleeping under a rock for the last week or 10 days, I don't think you could have helped but notice that Andy at Elusive has released a West Coast IPA that has caused quite the stir on Twitter. And now I know we've both had it. All I can say is it's an absolute triumph. It's a stunning beer, and it ticks every single West Coast box as far as I'm concerned.
I think it's an excellent beer, and I know that we've joked about certain strengths of beers. You know, Big Eagle, we've already mentioned it, over 7%. We're drinking this triple at 10.5%, and Oregon Trail probably comes in just above what maybe sensible people might consider session, but at 5.8%, it made it so drinkable, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I was chatting with Andy about it via DM, and I was saying, you know, that's one of the things that's so good about it is that ABV, because it means you can actually have a couple of them without it hitting you too hard straight away. And he said that he very much took inspiration from beers like Green Flash, their West Coast IPA, and Stone IPA, and you can really see where he's taken the inspiration in that beer in Oregon Trail, because it's absolutely got those flavour profiles. It's got that bitterness that you want. It's got that really big malty backbone that holds it all together. It's an absolute wonder of a beer.
Oh yeah, definitely, and it would definitely have been if you'd got in first with a question. Oregon Trail would have been the first beer I would have mentioned as well. And I know you've got a second beer, but just to give it a bit of context, I've had a bit of a American West Coast action going on, and I had that Highlight and from Cigar City and Torpedo from Sierra Nevada. And one of the evenings, I was quite happy to follow both of those up with the Oregon Trail. His beer is right up there with them.
It completely holds its own against those beers.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's no point. I don't need to wax lyrical about Highline and Torpedo, but yeah, Andy, well done with that Oregon Trail.
Oh, hats off. And the other beer was also from Andy as well, which is his latest iteration of the Spellbinder, the Coffee Porter, which is now available in cans. This current version of it, I know he uses a different coffee in every new brew of it, but this current version of it, again, just absolutely delicious. The coffee flavours, the coffee profile, the dark chocolate bitterness that's in there, that roasted notes. It's, again, just an absolute brilliant beer.
Yeah, I ordered some of that as well, and I agree. I mean, it just ticks all of the boxes you want from that particular style of beer. Yeah. And the can looks gorgeous.
Oh, his beers have transferred very well into cans, haven't they? That kind of 8-bit game imagery on cans works so well.
Especially on those 440s, that amount of real estate he gets to put the pictures on just look fantastic.
Yeah. So all I can say is well done, Andy, for those beers. Both of them absolutely delicious, and I look forward to trying many more of your beers in months to come. Better crack on with the news because I've just looked at my glass and I don't know whether it's the heat and it's evaporated, but there's not much left. And I do want to get through the news before we come back in on final thoughts on this beer. So just picking up on something that we probably didn't have time to mention last week because we were too enthralled in the discussion with Jules that we had on last week's show. But SIBA held their first digital awards. So this is the first time they've ever done online judging and tasting. Again, going back to what we were saying earlier, using the technology that's now available. They had over 50 beer experts take part in the judging of the awards online. And the overall winner, so coming out on top, was from Salopian Brewery, a beer called Darwin's Origin, which was a bitter, a straight up good old traditional English bitter, won the overall award for that. So congratulations to Salopian Brewery for that. But as with all of these awards, there are loads of categories where beers won, and I just wanted to pick up on a few notable mentions from some of those breweries that maybe we've featured recently as well that have picked up some of the awards. So firstly, congratulations to Brew York, who won the bottle canned IPA 5.5% to 6.4% with Big Eagle. Now, eagle-eared listeners, see what I did there? Oh yeah, would pick up that ABV is lower than the one that we tried, because the Big Eagle that was released was 7.2.
7.1 or 7.2, but it was definitely 7+.
Yeah. Basically, they had to lower the ABV to make it fit that category, because otherwise, over 6.4% is considered imperial. And
rubbish. Come on.
I know. Considering it's SIBA as well, that feels very old fashioned.
Yeah.
but anyway, so congratulations
Definitely.
to Brew York for winning that. Also picking up bronze in that category was a classic and a favourite of ours, Thornbridge's Jaipur. In the bottle can session lagers and pilsners, congrats again to Thornbridge for Lucas, which won gold, and to Signature Brew for their studio lager, which took a silver. In the premium lagers and pilsners category, Elusive Brewing won joint gold medal for their Overflow, which was a collaboration with, I want to say Siren, and I think it was one of these Brew Gooder collaborations.
Oh, possibly, yes.
Yeah. So again, congratulations to Andy for that. And then in the bottle can amber to dark lager, Utopian won with their Vienna Keller lager, which we featured recently. And they also picked up for strong beers, 6.5% and over, another gold medal for the Rainbock, the Maibach lager. So congratulations to all of those breweries, and well, to the whole list of them that are included on that. And we'll put a link in the show notes to all of the different categories and all of the different winners. But congrats to everybody that came out of the SEBA Awards with a medal.
Yeah, and congrats to SEBA and the judges. I mean, I saw quite a lot of stuff on Twitter where, people were getting their deliveries. They were, all the ready for the blind tastings, their Zoom groups with I think they had a session leader kind of thing. So well done on managing to switch from that traditional way of doing these kinds of award judging to doing it in the virtual online world. And yeah, congratulations to all the breweries, especially the ones who, we've tried ourselves, Steve.
Yeah, and we've been very lucky to try quite a few of those beers as well over the last few months where we've been doing the more regular shows, which is a lovely segue into the second news item. And yeah, this is bigging ourselves up a little bit, putting us in our own news. But
very, very meta.
Not sure where else we'd put it. But just wanted to give our listeners a little heads up that these weekly snippets are coming to an end. We've got 4 more that we plan to do throughout August. We've still got some guests booked in. But then as we reach September, and it's likely that both you and I will be returning to stricter work patterns and things, we're going to move back to our old fortnightly format. So it'll be a show every other week, probably a little bit longer, but also probably not as long as they used to be, because we've learned how to get a little bit tighter during this time as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously no promises, but we won't get carried away every now and again, depending on the subject matter, or if Steve decides we need to do 11% plus beers or something like that. But yeah, it's been good fun while it's lasted. I hope everyone's enjoyed them. We certainly enjoyed getting together once a week to do this, Steve, and with all the guests we've had. And but yeah, I will at some point be transitioning to the office. You'll be out and about again. So I think at least for the foreseeable future, going back to fortnightly seems like the right thing to do.
Yeah, and we still intend on featuring guests, but we'll still be looking to do that every other show. So if we're fortnightly, that's essentially 2 shows a month. You'll get one show of the fantastic S&M action, which some people like to refer to it as, and then you'll get a second show, which will hopefully have a guest join us as well to bring a different dynamic to things. And with that, we probably need to do final thoughts on this beer, because despite the fact that it's 10.5%, it's not hung around in the glass at all.
Ridiculously drinkable. And I know we've said about that a lot of beers, talking about the period we've been doing the snippets. We've had a lot of drinkable beers at quite high percentages. This is probably one of the most drinkable versus ABV. 10.5%. There's nothing really to add on those. Just to say again, even that little bit, the warming you get afterwards, isn't like that hot burn. It's just enough to let you know, oh, hold on, yes, you might think this is quite light, but don't take it for granted. It's a fabulous beer.
Yeah, I can't add anything to the original tasting notes that we spoke about at the top of the show. The one thing that I will say is, as it's warmed up in the glass, I just took a sip of it and then breathed out, and all the heat came down my nose, and that was that just kind of made me realise, oh, hang on a minute, that's a big beer that you're drinking there.
Yeah, definitely. But thank you again, Lee, for sending that one through. So if I do, as when I do another order from Brew York, let's have a look, maybe get a couple of them.
Yeah, hopefully there'll still be some left on that one. But no, really delicious, really, really tasty stuff. So let's move on to our next beer. Second beer this evening. And as Martin mentioned earlier on in the show, we are doing slightly different beers for our second beer. One of us has done much better with the ABV on their second beer than the other. Martin, how's your 5.5%? I think is it?
Actually, it's a 5% straight. So I have the Juice Forsyth, a 5% juicy bonus fruited IPA.
And I have got 8.5%. Muffin Else Matters. I do love the Brew York names, I really do. This is a blueberry pastry stout. It is a slight reworking of a beer that we tried from Brew York last year, the Stay True.
I did wonder if it was similar to that one.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if you can see this, but it has poured. It's dark, but it's almost purple.
Yeah,
And,
there is a
and
purple
the head,
haze.
Yeah, the head is purple. So I'm intrigued with this one. Shall we have a little taste and see what we think?
Cheers, Steve.
Cheers.
Well, I'm intrigued to find out what your beer's like first, Steve.
It's sweet. It's a little tart, which I imagine you'd expect from the blueberries. It's very drinkable. It is full on pastry stout. There's no roasted notes to this. There's no bitterness as such on the finish. It is sweetness through and through. But it does absolutely taste like blueberries.
My one is a very light, hazy New England style IPA. Hasn't got that really thick, juicy quality to it, both in appearance and in flavour. It's got quite zesty notes on the top end of the aroma, lemon and lime perhaps. I found it to be very fruity all the way through. Doesn't finish with that sweet sugariness that you and I have referenced before, that we're not particularly fans of, and a distinct lack of any sort of hot burn as well. So again, it's ticking a lot of the right kind of New England IPA boxes for me. It'll take me a few more mouthfuls because I think there's also an element of calibration and reset here after the 10.5% beast we had earlier.
Oh, so, goodness, yeah, you're coming down by half.
Yeah, half and a bit. But I'm guessing that Lee, as is his wont, will have supplied us with a bit of information, Steve.
Absolutely, as always, and we're always really grateful for this as well. So, as you know, it's great to get sent beers by breweries, and obviously we are very grateful for that. But it's also great when they send us a little bit more information, a little bit of the background behind the beers as well. So, Juice Forsyth, it's a tropical fruited IPA made with a blend of 4 hops: Cascade, Columbus, Citra, and Mosaic. So again, pretty classical US hop combo there for that.
Used very differently, considering 2 of those hops were in beer number 1.
Yeah, but also 3 fruits have gone into that as well. So you've got pineapple, mango, and passion fruit also in that beer. Also added lactose to create a bigger body and to replace the fruit sweetness that is lost as the fruit sugars are fermented. So
you see, I don't think I would have pulled out the lactose there.
Yes, it's interesting that they've used it for the body to boost the body on it. In terms of what I've got, the Muffin Else Matters, this is a revisit of the blueberry stout recipe that they brewed for their 3rd birthday, which was the Stay True that I know both of us really enjoyed last
Yeah, we did.
year, and for me that was almost a contender for beer of the year last year for me. But this time it's got even more dessert character. Lee also then goes on to say that the name and the branding come from one of his all-time favourite metal acts, and I'm pretty sure I don't need to tell anyone that it's a play on words of Nothing Else Matters by Metallica. So sorry if there's a little bit of grandma and eggs going on there, but I just thought I should probably mention it in case not everyone was fully aware of it. But it is very tasty. I'm actually drinking it cold this evening because it is a very, very warm day. But it is obviously going to warm up as we go through the rest of the show. And making its triumphant return, Hopinions is back.
Opinions, 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 opinions.
Should discounts and vouchers be part of the camera membership package? 446 votes, 18.4% of people thought yes, 81.6% of people said no. Let's dive into some of these comments from Ian Hay at II Hay. Absolutely not. Real ale is a premium product that needs care and attention from the barley in the field via the maltster, brewer and publican until it reaches my glass. The custodians of such a product are suffering enough at the moment, and this discount culture does not help. From Dr. Goggles at Burn Angel. Camera should be about supporting pubs. Taking money away from pubs isn't supporting them. But if pubs think offering a discount works for them and gets them some customers, that's up to them.
From John at Beer in the Suburb. Yes, but should be targeted at supporting independent brewers in smaller venues. It should boost demand for real ale and trade in struggling pubs, not super cheap Abbott ale in spoons. I've no issue with the discount, as it's a publican's choice to offer it if they feel that it gets more business through the door. It also successfully outs the grade A pricks who demand the discount as a right. The vouchers can get to hell. And no surprise, that's from Mark N. Johnson.
From Heaton Hops, free spoons, vouchers or discounts should not be the reason to join an organisation. Also, the sense of entitlement when folks shove the membership card in your face is not cool. From Mark at Beer at Markey, discounts are aimed at attracting the more casual beer drinker to join. Hopefully when they seek out alternative venues, breweries and attend festivals that they probably wouldn't have before. I assume Camera need large membership numbers to be relevant at a national level.
From Jim at Jimbo_Baggins. I was a Canberra member for a while, but never once flashed the card and asked for a discount. Too embarrassed. In fact, the pubs I use most regularly don't accept it. Good regional breweries try to keep costs down for everyone. And from Brinsler at Brinsler, never use the spoons vouchers, but always ask in a pub if they do camera discount when ordering an ale. I see it as no different to asking if a shop does student or military discount.
From Simon Webster at A Bees Boy, as a camera member, I rarely, if ever, use my vouchers. They also revealed only 25% of the vouchers printed are actually used, but they have a role in attracting new members. It influenced me and others who may choose to stop using them over time as they come to value real ale more. And then from Seaside Reds, got no real problem with discount vouchers, but I do have a problem with them being so geared towards Wetherspoons. The harm is that it encourages camera members to drink in spoons only.
From Johnny Tyson at the Beer Angler, Camera needs to focus on real ale and the promotion of its correct treatment and service. Membership benefits should be restricted to a discount entrance to beer festivals. I have only once asked for a discount at a pub and immediately regretted it, as I felt like a total cheapskate. From the Ale Lady, no. It encourages people to join for the wrong reasons. Their ethos, standards and reputation for inclusiveness and diversity should be enough for folk to want to join and support, which probably explains who they've needed to use the vouchers for so long.
From Richard Taylor at Rich Taylor 1608, I answered correctly, no. If Camera are about promoting real ale and saving pubs, then how about their members go to a pub that sells real ale and offer to pay more for their pint, which will help the pub and the breweries. Fewer pubs equals less real ale sales equals no point in Camera. And then from Lou Stringer at Lou Stringer, to be honest, this has been a big part of why I've not joined Camera and the association with Wetherspoon. Seems more focused on a cheap pint rather than protecting quality cask ales.
From Gary at Workshop Driver, We'd rather pay an extra £5 per member and use the funds to partner with lots of different small breweries to help support cask beer being made and sold. Then use the political and industry influence they have to promote cask, not spoons. From Nate at Nate Dog 27, for some, it's the only incentive to sign up. I think Canberra needs to discourage its members from asking for discounts in independent pubs. It was an absolute nightmare when I worked in the Reindeer. We'd have people come in and storm out because we didn't offer a discount.
Well, there's a range of views there this week, isn't there?
Yeah, where do you start? Apart from, quite obviously, people did link the discounts to their love or hate of spoons as well.
I think let's talk about our views, because I think we're going to pick up some of those comments as we naturally go through what we think about this. Now, this is going to be an interesting one, I think, because I am not a camera member. I left as I didn't feel as though it was really doing anything for me being a member. I will probably admit to when I did join for a couple of years, probably one of the driving forces was behind that was the discounts and the vouchers that were available. But you are still a camera member, aren't you? And you have been for many years now as well. So we've got kind of both sides of the fence here, so to speak. What's your thought on this as a member? Do you ever go into a pub expecting to be able to show your card and get a discount?
No, and to be honest, I hardly ever take the cards out with me because I'll be honest, these days I tend to take out my phone or just one bit of plastic rather than even a wallet, because I don't always need to carry cash. One card and one way of contactless payment, and that's all you need. I mean, when I was out on my cycle ride yesterday, there was one pub offering a discount. I think it was like 20p for a pint, 10p for a half to camera members. And I saw it and thought, oh, well, never mind. I'm not even sure I would have shown the card anyway. But I do agree with one of the comments. I think it was from Mark and Dr. Goggles as well. If a pub wants to do it independent as an incentive, I know some pubs may do it like on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, a bit like the whole eat out scheme from the government to encourage footfall. Then again, they're a business. They're allowed to offer whatever discounts they want. But I don't think Canberra should be encouraging it. It's not why I signed up. The big draw for me was that I could rock up at most Canberra festivals, and you know, those ones which start on a Tuesday, you better go on a Tuesday, Wednesday or Thursday and probably get them for free. And then I've got access to the beer festival without having to worry about it. 3 or 4 festivals in a year, and I've probably got my money's back. So the discount scheme was never, I'm not even sure when I signed up in 2001 whether what the discount scheme was then, whether it was spoons or not.
But that right there that's a discount, isn't it? That is part of the incentive scheme of being a camera member, is that you can get access to beer festivals for free.
But very directly supporting those breweries that are supplying the beer festival, rather than supporting maybe, for example, a big company like Spoons. So I see that as a bit different. That's all part of the camera ethos about getting people to try the real ale. You're getting to most of them are local breweries as well at a lot of the camera festivals. So I see that as a bit different. That's my take on it. But I don't think Canberra should be actively encouraging their members to sign up for those discounts. I don't think they should be actively encouraging pubs to offer them. And worse still, it definitely shouldn't influence Canberra members when they come to vote for their pubs of the year either. And I'm pretty confident when I say that I think that has happened in the past in regions I've lived in, because I can find no other reason why some pubs win it.
I 100% agree with you there. I really do. I think, and that's a shame that some people take it that way, that, you know, because X pub hasn't offered me a discount, then that's not a decent pub, when actually it may well be the best pub in an area that has the best kept beer and the best range of beer.
We already get cask beer at a discount compared to other beer products, whether that be cans, bottles, or keg. Cask is the cheapest version of all of those 9 times out of 10. So how much more discount do we need?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there were pictures the other week of what was it? A Spoons. I think it was in Leeds that was selling
Rudgate mild
for 89p a pint.
Yeah. Now I know a few people suggested they may have rubbed off the pound, but even then, £1.89. Bloody hell! I can go to Costa and spend more than that.
And potentially the ability to still use a 50p off voucher.
Yeah.
On that as well.
You know, I think Richard's point is the big thing, and that's the thing which has been frustrating me so much. Canberra have made some strides over the last couple of years. There's definitely a bit of a more youthful feel to the executive board and some of the stuff they're trying to get over the line. But cask beer and real ale, as they like to term it, is at its best in a pub. And if you start losing the pubs, you're going to lose the real ale. And let's face it, if Spoons had to get rid of one product or reduced a product and the amount of choice they have, it will be the cask beer lines that they will start to reduce. So the support won't be there either. And it's not like they pay a premium for those beers.
I was going to say it's questionable whether that they're actually benefiting the breweries they're buying from anyway.
Probably in product placement as much as anything else, to be honest. It's not for the how much they're making on it, is it? So there's a lot of reasons why Canberra should be maybe take a step back, risk losing some renewals, risk not being able to sign up as many people, and have a bit of a reset. And also, maybe they can also go back to being truly independent as well. There's a lot of feeling within Canberra members about their link with Wetherspoons. And I know that their voucher scheme now isn't just at Spoons. I think it does cover a couple of other pub codes as well. But it puts people off, and it probably puts off those people who would be active members rather than non-active members who just want to be there for the vouchers. So Canberra should maybe take this opportunity, have a reset. Maybe it could come up at the next AGM as a tabled motion. I think it would still stay. That would be the sad bit. I think enough people would vote for it to stay. But like I said, independent venues offering a discount, that's entirely up to them. That's their business. That's their business model. That's up to them how they do it. It shouldn't influence decisions, and Canberra shouldn't be actively promoting it.
Well, one of the comments that I just want to pick up on, which just does highlight that a little bit, was from the one from Mark at Beer Marky, and it was the last part of his comment where he said, "I assume Canberra need large membership numbers to be relevant at a national level." Now that I find that a really interesting point in terms of them being an active lobbying group.
And they have trumpeted that before, haven't they? Because they're up around that 190, 200,000. And I think that qualifies them as the largest consumer group. So yes, I can understand that. And I think it was actually a really good point, well made. However, I would argue at times, how much influence does Canberra have? I'm not sure Canberra really got involved enough in the whole two debates which came out recently, pubs versus schools, and the small duty tax that we spoke about. So I'm not really sure Canberra have been exerting their supposed influence perhaps as much as they should do and as much as they could be.
To be fair, mate, they've almost been fucking invisible compared to SEBA, who have been an absolute leading light in the industry over these last few months.
Whereas they should be working together and independently, but as loud as each other. And yeah, sadly, I don't think Canberra have stepped up to the mark over a couple of things recently. So whether you've got 10,000 members, 10 members, or 200,000 members, if you're not trying to exert your influence, then you're irrelevant.
Because whereas SEBA are representing the industry itself, and more so the brewers and the businesses within it, Canberra should be there as a consumer organisation, shouldn't they? And they should be representing the interests of their members. Yeah.
And the interest of the members surely is to still be able to go back to their basics. It's about saving real ale. Where can you get real ale at its best? In a pub.
As always, though, loads of great comments this week. We can't feature all of them. There is a link in the show notes to the question, so you can click on that and have a read through and look at all of the responses. You can still get involved in this discussion. Use the hashtag Hopinions, and you may very well find yourself in this next part of the show.
Let us know, write it down. Let us know, write it down. Let us know your thoughts and bitter and lingerness. Write it down.
From Sophie at So Be a Blogger. Really enjoyed listening to this week's podcast. Just to update you, we now have a working hand pull in the shed, currently pouring Stealth Brew Co. Double Crosser version 3. You have no idea, Sophie, how envious I am of that shed that you and Josh have.
I'm assuming we're not talking about a full cask here. I'm assuming we're talking about the smaller poly pin.
I'm assuming so.
They must be,
unless they've literally moved in there. They're just lying underneath the tap now.
Yeah, because they're not going to get through 80 pints in 3 days.
You'd be surprised. But Sophie, let us know. Let us know what sort of size pins you're getting in for your shed. But yeah, it does look fabulous, and that is cracking that you've got a hand pull in there as well now. From Johnny Beerboy at Johnny Beerboy. After enjoying the return of you two gabbing on last week, I also really enjoyed this week's guest. Jules just seems so lovely, not to mention quite inspirational and super informative. I come for the guests, but stay for Martin's expletive-filled rants.
And that seems to be a popular theme on this week's feedback. So from your boy, Rob Edwards, Martin has just said, it's a fucking ridiculous question, isn't it? And I just know there are going to be some great rants. I do enjoy my Thursday mornings. We haven't seen an increase in the infection rate because they've reopened it. We've seen an increase because people are fucking idiots. I wish Martin would stop sitting on the fence. And then from Simon Dewhurst at Simosloff, cracking episode, guys. A sweary Martin, wonderful insight from Jules, and brilliantly all held together by Steve. Agree that pubs versus schools is a silly question and a completely unfair comparison. We would all like to think both to be open. As Jules pointed out, pubs do a tremendous amount of charity, provide a valuable community hub, help isolated individuals, and boost the economy massively.
From Leon Brew at Leon Brew. Great to hear Jules on the show this week. I've only met Jules recently thanks to Crafty Beer Girls Meets on Zoom. Her knowledge is vast and her passion shines through. I hope that came across to your listeners. Great show as always. Thanks, Lou. And yes, we could literally have released a 2.5 hour show. Our chat with Jules was excellent. From Mark Malbec Johnson. Great snippet. Good idea to avoid a poll and let Jules give so much insight and chat. Glad that the school versus pub question was greeted as the sheer nonsense that it is. People worried about losing jobs being used to create further division. I sense my own rant is imminent. We look forward to it, Mark.
I expect there will be a post coming soon. And then finally from Cask Theology, inspired by Beer O'Clock Show and hashtag Opinions on Wheels. I'm on my 4th week of cycling to get fit. Goal is always a pub, naturally, with each one further than the last. Getting fit and helping the industry at the same time. That sounds like a great way to do it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I love the idea of is choosing the next pub a little bit further each time as well.
Yep, always good to have goals when you're doing these sorts of things.
Always good to have goals.
As always, great to get so much feedback on one of the shows, and we really enjoy it when our listeners do let us know what they think of the show. Keep using Opinions, and we'll keep finding those comments. We've got a couple of questions.
Questions fill my head.
So first up this is essentially Paul's section, so you would always expect there to be a question from Paul. From Paul at UNRCD. So what's people's favourite fruit in a beer? Mine has to be raspberry. What about you, mate? Easy question to answer that one?
I want to give 2 answers.
Okay.
So if I look at my Belgian beer and my love of Belgian beers, I'm going to have to say cherry. For me, it's the one which works best in the lambics. But I still have a very soft spot for high wire grapefruit. So I'm going to throw the grapefruit element in there as being one of the ones that I still think it's the best use of grapefruit in a beer is the high wire for Magic Rock.
Interesting. So two curveballs there. I didn't expect either of those. I really didn't.
What about yourself?
This is a tough one. I I generally don't want fruit anywhere near my IPAs or my pale ales, despite the beer that you're just swigging there as we're speaking, full of fruit. I would rather let the hops do the work there in terms of the flavour and imparting flavours that are similar to things. But when it comes to stouts and things, I would probably have to agree with Paul, actually. You darker fruits, so things like raspberry, again, like you say, cherry. One I'm drinking here, the blueberry, they all work really, really well in a stout, and they seem to be quite versatile in their use as well.
Yeah, they definitely complement the stouts, especially you can think of a few like dark chocolates you can buy which have those elements in them as well. So it definitely works with those ones. Good question, though. I like that one.
Great question. And listeners, let us know your thoughts on that. Let us know what your favourite fruit is in beer. Again, use the hashtag opinions. And we've got a second question this week from Miles Lambert, at Miles Lambert. Question for you. Have you ever changed your mind about a beer?
I'm going to go yes. Problem is, I can't think of anything that springs to mind. But I know when I've checked in a beer on Untapped and there's been a massive gap in between, but sometimes I'm surprised by either how well I rated a beer previously versus now, or conversely, how down I was about a beer and then how much I'm enjoying it this time round. And obviously, two main reasons for that can be the beer's changed or I've changed. You can never know necessarily which way round it is. But I think the ones which maybe I didn't like early on, it's probably a bit more about me. And the ones which I did like before, there's probably an element of, maybe I've just got used to something a little bit different. So maybe it's me each time. Whichever way I go, it's me. What's your thoughts?
Again, I was a little bit like you. I couldn't instantly think of one, but I agree with your comments there regarding, you check a beer in after not having had it for a few years, and you'll be surprised that your ratings changed either way. But then I thought about it, and then I had a sudden epiphany in terms of, I ever really changed my mind about a beer? Yes, Punk IPA. I've actually actively stopped drinking it because I think at the moment it tastes absolutely terrible.
That's a good point, actually. I would have had Punk IPA as a beer that I would go for when I saw it a few years back. And the first time I had it, it blew my mind. Actually, that's a good shout, the Punk IPA. It's gone from, I'll have it when I see it almost, to, really? Is that the best you've got?
Yeah, well, it used to be a fridge filler for me, and I won't even buy it at the moment because I just don't enjoy the way it's tasting right now.
I think Dead Pony Club is far superior to Punk, and at 2% ABV less, it's much better value than.
Really? I don't think you've ever shared that opinion before, mate.
Haven't I? Oh, no, I'll share it again in the future at some point, maybe.
That's the first time for that one. And again, we'd love to hear our listeners' thoughts on that question as well. Once again, use that hashtag opinions, and we'll continue to find you. We're at the end of the beers. How was your juice Forsyth, mate?
The tropical notes just carried on increasing. Probably a little bit of it warming up in the glass, and this evening is just getting more humid. I think it's going to be another one of those nights where it's going to be a struggle to sleep. It's not compared to the first beer. It's not as good for me, but it is light. It is fruity. It does hit all those tropical notes. It is a New England style IPA I can get behind.
Excellent, great feedback on that one.
How have you got on with your 9.5%? Is it
8.5?
Okay. How have you got on?
It's really tasty. I will say straight away, it doesn't taste 8.5%. The combination of these two beers is certainly going to mean that I'm not going to have any trouble sleeping this evening. It really isn't. I think I lucked out a little bit, maybe not in terms of the ABV, but in terms of style-wise. After the triple IPA, you go into a stout and go into quite a sweet stout. It's worked quite well. The sweetness is there. Those blueberry notes stay throughout. There is a kind of thickness and a tartness to it as well. And as it's warmed, it's all of those notes have just got softer. as well, which has made it much easier to drink. When I first tasted it, it was literally straight from the fridge, and it was, oh yeah, this is nice and refreshing, nice and tart. But the flavour profiles have changed as I've gone through that beer.
Yeah, I can imagine once it started to get a little bit warmer, you're starting to get more than just that initial fruit and tartness from it. So yeah, it's definitely one to seek out, I imagine.
Yeah, as all they are, and all of the Brew York beers. Lee has been very generous on a number of occasions, and we've been very lucky to try a range of different styles and flavours from them as well. And I will say the one thing that I'll continue to say is that regardless of whether it's necessarily a style that's one that I prefer, every single beer that I've tried from Brew York has been absolutely bang on in terms of what it says on the label.
Oh, definitely, and very accomplished, and hits the mark that they're aiming for.
Yeah, without a doubt. So again, thank you, Lee, for sending those down to us. We really do appreciate it. We've really enjoyed featuring your beers again. Martin, what's coming up next week?
We are being joined by two of our favourite people, Wayne and Janice, aka the Irish Beer Snobs.
I'm really interested to chat to them about how this whole situation has been dealt with in Ireland as well,
Definitely.
particularly in terms of their industry beginning to reopen and the rate at which they've reopened. So I really look forward to that. And if any of our listeners have got any questions that they'd like to specifically ask Wayne or Janice, let us know, and we'll make sure to feature those in discussion next week.
We're also going to tackle the subject that's come up recently about beer festivals.
Can't wait. I'm so excited to record with Wayne and Janice again. Without further ado, the glasses are empty. We've finished enjoying some great beers again this evening. Martin, I look forward to joining you for another snippet next week. Cheers.
Cheers, Dave.
And nothing else matters.